Welcome to Eddie's Launchpads, the Dogsthorpe Infant School podcast for parents, teachers and schools. Eddie and Captain Dave have another great guest on their launchpad. So sit back and enjoy the show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
You are listening to Launchpad, the Dogsthorpe Infant School podcast.
We are here to meet another dear friend of the show. He's been on the show before, and he brings a series of resources that is going to be just right for your school, I'm sure. Now, we all want to see learning progress in our classrooms, don't we? One of the companies that offers great resources in this field is Chatta, and it's lovely to welcome Chris Williams onto the show. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you. A pleasure to join you again. It's great to be involved with the brilliant podcast.
Could you just introduce yourself again for those who don't know you and a little bit about how Chatta started?
I'm Chris Williams. I was a teacher in Hull for about 25 years, and I have worked as a Senko in primary schools and a special school teacher with autistic children. I designed Chatta when I was a teacher and started using photographs in my teaching. So when smartphones and tablets really allowed us to take and capture images immediately and the power that gave us, I saw a huge impact for the students I was working with. And I was lucky enough to be able to raise funding to build some software which allows teachers and parents, therapists, teaching assistants, whoever, to use pictures in teaching. So when we started, I was able to design the software, and we launched a project in Hull with 500 families, which made an impact on early language. These were preschool children. And from there, the approach and resources have really spread through primary school into special schools, secondary schools, into some different countries, and it's been quite a journey.
Now, the great thing about what you offer is, as you've hinted at, it goes right across the age groups, doesn't it?
It does, because it's a teaching approach which it's designed really to mirror the way people think. It can be linked to any subject at any level, and primarily it's used by the teacher or the adult when presenting content or information. But it's very interactive and aims to remove barriers to learning for all students, perhaps students with working memory difficulties, students who struggle with sequencing processing, developing language skills, but it allows inclusive teaching so that teachers can aim high for all pupils and feel assured that others who may have been at risk of slipping through the net will achieve. The teacher with Chatta, they create a storyboard as they're teaching. If they were teaching about the water cycle and they were talking about evaporation, condensation, whatever, they would add images to the storyboard as they're teaching. And the software allows them to make a recording on their classroom screen, a voice recording. So it kind of becomes a talking postcard. And the pupils can contribute to this, and that's really used as a scaffold for oral composition activities, to help as a stimulus for writing, and to really allow the students to understand and then explain the content. But it's basically teaching with pictures, and the software makes that effortless in the classroom, and any content can be shared with families at home and actually made by students and families at home following the same process.
Now, we had a company on not that long ago called Picture News, and they use current affairs, and they use a picture on that sort of score. But it sounds like yours goes much deeper than that and covers, well, the whole curriculum.
It does, and we've got content really of examples to cover the whole curriculum. But when you're thinking of Picture News, and you imagine the newsreader reading the news on the TV, and they're talking about whatever. There's been a robbery at the bank, and they're describing the bank and the getaway car and the police, and there will often be an image in the background as they're explaining different parts. And Chatter's really that. It illustrates things right at the detail that the students are thinking about, and we've been able to apply it to every subject. The secondaries we work with, some of them they use it a lot for dyslexic students, but they're able to box up, if you like, the entire GCSE history or geography curriculum into bite-sized chunks that really help the students retain and explain and understand the content. So when we can link to news, but we can link to anything.
What is needed by the school in order to get Chatter? If they subscribe to Chatter, what do they need?
Well, the Chatter software works on tablets and smartphones, but the best way for a school to use it is simply through the classroom computer. So they will need a computer with an internet browser and a screen, ideally a microphone and speakers, but they're not essential. And that's all they'd need to set up. They can access the software online. They don't need to install it. Anything they make there is readily saved, and of course all our resources are in there. And that's about it. They would need access to our training so they can really make it their own, but that's available online and is very straightforward. Chatter is very simple, and that's the basics of what they need. They could book additional training and classroom demonstrations, but they don't have to. The very best and most effective way to use Chatter is whole class teaching, teacher at the front, teacher using the screen and using it to interact with the students. The students don't need a tablet to experience the benefits of Chatter. However, many of our schools who are lucky enough to have resources of Chromebooks or tablets or such things, they will, when appropriate, allow the pupils opportunities to make their own content, and that works very strongly. But likewise, if those resources are available, anything that's made by the teacher, of course, is accessible immediately by students with devices. Students can respond to content that's made. They can recreate it. They can reply to it. So that there is that interactivity. But if I was to introduce Chatter to a school in the first instance, that wouldn't be the first thing I suggest. I would encourage the teachers to get comfortable teaching through it, see the difference it makes for their everyday teaching, and then start to look at some of the opportunities, and there are many, of what the software can bring.
I'll tell you the thing that struck me as you was explaining how it all worked and the benefits of this. We have a large number of pupils at Dogsthorpe Infants that speak different languages. And they really, especially if they've just come into the country, for example, and they come in and they're struggling with the actual written word. But if you show them a fire engine, or if you show them, using your analogy, a bank, they, yeah, we know that, and so I can see it can students that are struggling with maybe with their vocal dexterity or their written word, that through pictures they can keep up with the rest of the class if they're struggling with certain terminology that we use in this country.
100%. The vocabulary rich curriculum is something that if pupils can't access it and don't understand a significant proportion of what's taught and covered, there are gaps. The students who are new to English really thrive with Chatter, and a lot of our schools use it to help them accelerate conversational English, functional English, but then into academic language. I work with a school with a number of refugee children who came from Syria, and when we started working with them, there was not a lot of English. And it was interesting that they started with content that was relevant to them. So food and travel and family and places. And there was one boy who loved sport, and he with his teacher, he made a chatter board about the Egyptian footballer Mohamed Salah. And he was talking about his goals and his trophies and his speed and his headers and all of the things that he did, and was able to give a fluent explanation of this. But that really unlocked, of course, language is transferable. So it unlocked so much vocabulary and explanation and understanding skills that he actually went on to pass his GCSE in English, and he took a speaking part in the school production of Romeo and Juliet. And we started, of course, from where he was, but we're able to guide him to the curriculum. And you're right, pictures remove a lot of barriers if children or young people don't know the words in the first instance, but they are like sponges, and the more a student is exposed to a word, the more they understand it, the more they'll use it and apply it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I also think another thing that struck me as you were talking was that particularly for our very, very early years, children think in pictures. You know, it's and that's reflected in the stories that they read. You know, yellow lorry, red lorry, and all that sort of. It's all about their thinking in pictures, and then they start to learn their vocabulary from the pictures. So I can see that working with early years very well.
Yeah, it does, and you're so right. The idea of thinking in pictures, and we work with a lot of early years settings, but also a lot of early years families, and they'll use it on their smartphone, and all they'll do is turn everyday events into stories. They might go to the park, feed the duck, sit on the bench, kick a ball, whatever, and the parents take pictures of these exciting and or everyday events, and they turn them into stories with the children, and it's that idea. Certainly in early years, where does language come from? It comes from the things the children do, of course, but it comes from the words that they hear and the interactions they have. And all we try to do with our early years families is expose children to opportunities to hear language and use language through stories and things that they've done and seen.
School budgets are tight. It's difficult for all schools. Listening to this, they know how tough it is. So I'm guessing that they're going to say, this sounds really good, but how much is it going to cost? If there's a school listening that thinks that maybe they could use Chatter, what are the sort of price ranges are they looking at if they're thinking about budget, Chris?
Well, they can access the software for £60 a teacher. They can extend that to whole school for £300. If they wanted additional training face to face, then the cost would be discussed. But it's what it would cost for a trainer to visit school, demonstrating class. But like I said, lots of things are online. Chatter isn't expensive or prohibitive, although many schools do choose to use pupil premium funding to fund it. But we're lucky enough to be supported by funded projects. So we do have space for 50 schools to join us at no cost next year on a 2-year project, which will be evaluated and supported by a charity. So there are ways in. Like this, we try to keep it as fair and affordable as we can.
You say £60 per teacher. Is that for the year?
It is for the year. What they get with that, they would get our software. We do regular live webinar training on all aspects of teaching and learning, all subjects and for all ages on the approach and its applications. But also we've got a big bank of online training, but I would say a massive bank of models and resources. So we kind of just put that together for teachers that want to join, and maybe the school doesn't want to invest in long-term school improvement training, and it kind of equates at £5 a month. It's trying to remove the barrier. We can't do it for nothing, but it's trying to remove the barriers. No. Because what we're trying to do is we're very small, and we're trying to get our voice heard. What we'd like to do is to celebrate people's successes and help spread the word, I suppose.
That's what we try and do on Launchpad. We love resources like yours, and we love to support you. And if there's any way that we can, if you're going to launch something new, or there's something you want to tell our many listeners, do come back on, Chris. Now, if a teacher is interested in this and they want to see it in action, can they go online and see it in action, or is there a free trial or something? Is there a way we can get it in front of our teachers so they can see it in action?
Yeah, they can try the software. They can visit our website, and there's a 30-day free trial, and they're very welcome to do that. I would say they need to take a little bit of time to learn about the best ways to use Chatter. It kind of it goes against the grain of some of the tech solutions they may be familiar with, because it involves them and their teaching. But if people wanted to explore more, we'll always help, and they can access our software via our website, chatterlearning.com. Chatter spelled CHATTA, chatterlearning.com.
It's clear from how far you've travelled since the last time you was on the show. Chatter is definitely on its ascendancy, and we look forward with eager expectation as to where you go next. Chris, thank you for your time today. Folks, if you want to get hold of Chatter and you missed the website, go on to the text of our podcast. Chris is our only guest, so you are not going to get all mixed up with different links or whatever. Go and have a look in the text. You'll see you're just one click away from the fabulous Chatter.
Well, that's it for another week, folks. Captain Dave and Eddie will be back again soon with another Launchpad. They'll have more great guests, more places to see, and more interesting things to share on the learning journey. So, be kind, be respectful, and always remember to dream, believe, and shine.
The podcast to encourage young stars to dream, believe, and shine.